Hello, my beautiful friends. We are going to be talking about the final new moon of 2022, and I am just in love with this energy. This is going to be the Capricorn new moon happening on December 23rd at 1 degree of Capricorn. And this is the kind of energetic that I love to work with. And the more that I sat with this energy, the better I was feeling with it. And I think it'll be a really nice tonic after the work that we were doing with the Gemini full moon we just had. The energy here is going to be a lot more comforting, a lot more coming back to basics. And I just want to take a moment, with Capricorn energy, we so often get the imagery of the frugality and the kind of conserving and being really practical and being very financially minded. We kind of have this idea of what Capricorn is floating around in our space, right? And those of you with strong Capricorn energy, I'm sure, have navigated your sign and found all the deeper layers there and know all about this. But I just wanted to take a moment to explore Capricorn from a different angle, which is that for me, Capricorn, it's the cardinal earth sign. It's connected with Saturn, with the symbolism of the father. And because of that, it has really deep roots with how we treat ourselves in the practical things, how we treat ourselves and the way we think about our value in life. Capricorn energy is also deeply tied to generations and how we're doing healing work or connecting with the generations that came before us and what an impact that makes on our lives. I think when Capricorn energy is activated in a really healthy, beautiful way, this can be some of the most nourishing, sustaining energy to work with. And a lot of us have to get creative and explore to create that relationship, I think, with this kind of Capricornian way of being for those of us who don't have strong Capricorn in our chart. And just in our culture in general, there's a lot of pain with this idea of past generations and father energy. So it's an important energy to get into alignment with and to feel connected with, because it really does make such a difference in our lives and the way that we move through it. So let's get into the details of this particular new moon in Capricorn. It's happening on the 23rd. So for me, this is very much a solstice new moon. It's happening at this very tender point in the year where we are connecting with how we live in this solar system and how we connect to the sun and its journey and our journey around the sun. So it already has this energetic, a review, a reflection, of introspection. New moons already have that, right? New moons are all about dreaming and connecting with our new dreams, beginning new things. So this is a sun and moon. They'll be conjunct at 1 degree of Capricorn. And the big aspect here for this new moon is going to be a square with Jupiter. And Jupiter just newly went into Aries as this new moon is happening. So it's at 0 degrees of Aries, and we've worked with Jupiter in Aries before. So we're returning to these themes. Now, this is a really interesting square, right? Because it lights up Capricorn, which is so often associated with our powerful legacy, how we build and maintain wealth, all these kinds of ideas, right, on the pop culture front. And then Aries, being somebody in the world. For me, these two energies are very much about those kind of external ways that we perform in the world, right? When we hear about these energies on the pop astrology front, that's normally what we're going to be hearing about. And I was thinking about this, this new moon is a really nice reflection to our September new moon as well, where we were working with these themes as well, but there's a very different flavor here for this new moon. We also have Chiron going direct in Aries during this new moon. Chiron has been retrograde since July 19th. So this new moon is also a really wonderful time to check in with your healing work since July, the second half of this year pretty much. And this is important, and this really gives this whole new moon its flavor, because this is going to be about not performing who we think we need to be in the world, not performing our successful self to the world, but inviting our quirky, strange self to the table in the conversation within ourselves. And that Chiron direct, along with the square with Jupiter and Aries, this is really going to challenge us to look at how we frame ourselves in our lives, how we frame the way we talk about ourselves, how we frame the way we invite ourselves to the table of life. And yes, squares are about a challenge, right? They're about something that needs to be met head on so that it can dissolve and become something new. It's an alchemical process. And I think often we think of squares as kind of this agitated, frustrating, scary, tough thing. But squares are really just about a meeting point where we're able to see things with new eyes. So let's talk about the themes, because for me, I really picked up on 3 major themes for this new moon to work with and play with. Theme 1 is this idea of, yes, being somebody out there in the world. You know, we all have the pressures and the ideas, and we may have even come up with an identity of who we think we need to be in the world. For example, I often feel that I need to keep up a certain persona here on my channel and in the work that I do, right? And I have a lot of pressure. Nobody else is telling me I need to be any particular way, but I have an idea of how I want to be in the world, right? And we all have that. But this first theme is really about thinking about that, and then thinking about how you want to define your ideas of success, well-being, and goals in life. So this is really a time, it's a wonderful new moon, to just sit down with this idea of success. What is a successful day for you? What elements are involved in a successful day for you, in a successful week, in a successful year, and really thinking outside of the confines of money and business and looking pretty and doing the anti-aging thing or whatever it is, right? Thinking about in terms of, you know, a successful year is one where I've spent more time feeling that I'm in the parasympathetic nervous system than being revved up, right? So we can just play with that. This is going to be a fantastic new moon to redefine what success means to you. Theme number 2 is inventive thinking. And this is really the heart of this new moon for me. And it's this square between Jupiter at 0 degrees of Aries and the new moon at 1 degree of Capricorn. Because for me, that square and this conversation with Chiron going direct, this is all about inviting our weird selves to the table. You know, we all have parts of ourselves that we feel are socially awkward, are not fit to be at the dinner table, are maybe embarrassing or think too weirdly. And we often don't invite this part of ourselves to our brainstorming sessions, even just within ourselves, right? We will often castigate this part of ourselves as an inconvenience or something that is kind of getting in the way that maybe one day we'll overcome. But this new moon is really about inviting that weird self. And I really put that in quotation marks because, you know, that's all a judgment system of like what we consider weird and what we consider normal, right? And we don't need to go there, but we all have parts of ourselves that we feel are awkward or strange or uncomfortable or what have you. And when we put down this costume, right, which is what you would think we'd be talking about here with this new moon, we put down the costume and we allow the weird self to be part of the inventive brainstorming conversation, something really, really interesting happens there. And that's that Chiron direct as well. For me, this whole idea of inventive thinking and thinking outside of the lines of our own formation, our own form, our own expectations of ourselves and the world around us is also going to involve there being a bit of spaciousness in the way we're thinking about our path. So there's might be a little bit of quietness. I think often when we let our weird or strange selves into the table, into the conversation, we may feel like we're getting away with something, like we are sneaking around. But I think it's important that just to know that there is going to be this sense of spaciousness and not knowing that comes with brainstorming from this perspective. And it's really the core of this new moon. Finally, the third theme for this new moon is going to be alchemical process of allowing one container to dissolve and a new one to open. And this is actually connected with another aspect that's going on during this new moon. And it's over in a different part of the sky, but I wanted to bring it up, which is that Venus at 16 degrees of Capricorn is going to be trining Uranus at 15 degrees of Taurus. And this is a very inventive thinking trine. It is full of love. It's full of curiosity. It's full of wanting to know what happens when we let ourselves think outside the box. And I think this reflects too what I was talking about letting go, kind of checking in with our generational expectations, checking in with our generational ideas of who we think we need to be and where we think we need to be going. It's also going to be a wonderful moment to let some of the old containers dissolve. And I think inviting ourselves to the weird, our strange, our awkward selves to the table to brainstorm and have fun is part of that. It helps us do that work of dissolving old containers that we're letting go of for this year, right? Because it is the last new moon of 2022. We are in the solstice kind of energetics at this point. So it's a really important time to just be kind of checking in with ourselves. And also, I think all of this ties back to what I was saying about redefining what we think of as success. This is a really fantastic point to take a moment to really think about what you want to think about your new year, your new journey with the sun this year. What are going to be the defining features of that really are outside of our typical conversations about the new year and about new beginnings and all of that. Make it your own and get as weird as possible with your brainstorming. This is a great time to get out the Post-it notes and write a whole bunch of wild things on it and let your free spirit fly. You know, I think so often we think that this kind of conversation would be happening during an Aquarius moon or during a Leo moon or during a Gemini moon, but I think that this is actually one of the best brainstorming moons I've ever seen. And I think that's because there is that foundation of grounding and reflection that allows us to actually do a lot of safe exploring and seeking. And that is a really beautiful thing. So I'm so curious to see how this new moon is going to shape up. I'm going to be doing the activation for that over on my Patreon, where I'm going to kind of walk us through how to invite that weird self to the table and really have a fantastic conversation and allow them to take a little bit more of the leadership role. It's going to be so much fun. So I'd love to see you over there if you're looking for a little nourishment. Also, I'm doing the 4 weeks of crossing the threshold into a new year. Softly crossing the threshold is what it's called. Every Wednesday, starting on the solstice, I'm going to be doing a little chat. We're going to be doing a check-in and kind of doing a very soft way of moving through into the new year that's really not based on the cultural standards. So if you're looking for support in this time of year, I would love to see you over on Patreon, but let's get into the cards. I'm really curious to see what wants to come out here. 4 of Swords. Love it. One of my favorite cards. Such a great integration card. And it is a time of introspection. 5 of Pentacles again. Oh my goodness. I think that card came out in our last moon chat. Or recently at some point. I'm not sure when. I think I have to pull one final card to go with this because the story's never complete with 5 of Swords or 5 of Pentacles and Justice. Okay. So for me, what I see here, it's really interesting. We have 2 swords energies. We have 2 very air, communication, language-based energies, 4 of Swords and Justice. These to me are very clear-sighted energies. 4 of Swords is really about the integration process, right? 4s in tarot are all about a pause. We've just birthed something new. We've just created something. We've just moved through a little cycle. And this is the moment where we kind of take a moment to understand what that was about, what we were doing there, what that meant, how that felt. So this is a reminder that this is a restful new moon. And this is a time not to try and you don't have to pull your hair out trying to electrify your life. And I think that's a really, really important theme. In general, around the solstice, around this time of year, as we close this out, and especially in this new moon. So really important reminder there. here's where we get into why I think Capricorn energy is so important to find a relationship with and build with and play with and explore with, because Five of Pentacles is all about our security, right? It's all about what we feel we are allowed into and what we are allowed out of. A lot of times Five of Pentacles represents religious alienation, spiritual alienation, feeling far away from divine, feeling cut off. And this can also be I think this card also really connects with generational fears around value, worth, and safety and security. And when we're tapping into our weird self, to our unique self, the self that isn't going to be replicating generational things or pop culture things or scripted things that we have given to us throughout our lives, living amongst each other and our master stories, one of the things that happens is it feels very scary, like we're breaking rules or like we are, stepping out of line and like maybe we will be castigated. But I think what's also important is that as we step into that unique self, if we're brave enough to kind of let that lead a little bit more and gently lean into that a little bit more and build that trust, we're actually doing a lot of healing. We're leading by example. And what we're doing is we're allowing ourselves to get back in touch with that connected place. But Five of Pentacles shows up when a lot of times when we are kind of living in an old storytelling tradition about worth, value, and what a good person is, what a good actor in the community is. So there's some challenge going on here. There's some asking to reflect on how we value ourselves, how we value our time, our energy. And if we're feeling a little bit cut off from the divine, cut off from ourselves, this is a really great time to reflect on that, grieve and release anything around that, let some emotions flow. And finally, we have Justice, the card of clarity, decisions, answers. And I think that's a really interesting card to end this conversation with, because Justice is about insight in so many ways, right? It's about something clicking, something coming together, something that felt amorphous, undecided, unclear, presenting itself. For me, I think it reminds me of this whole process that I'm talking about, where we invite our weird selves to the table. We let that strange self help us redefine what success is for us. We let that part of ourselves that we often don't welcome into the outer world or into our performances in the world give us some of the ideas, and that's where the clarity comes in. That's where the healing comes in. That's where the interest comes in. That's where the understanding also about what this year has meant for you and where you're being pulled next may be coming from. So this is a fantastic, fantastic new moon. I am just so excited. It has so many layers to it, and you can really make it your own. It may be a new moon where you are doing a lot more that has to do with healing generational trauma, healing your relationship to inner parenting. It could be a new moon where you're just daydreaming and you're playing and you're coming up with new ideas and getting clarity. It may be a new moon where you're just wanting to rest and integrate the year. So each of us is going to be really playing with it in our own unique way, depending on how we connect to Capricorn energy and how we connect to this year and where we are. But I think it's going to be a beautiful one and really, really supportive. And like I said, I think it'll be a really nice grounding tonic to that Gemini electrifying full moon we just had a couple of weeks ago. Or a couple weeks before this new moon begins. So with that being said, I would love to see you over on Patreon. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be offering up some really wonderful tools to close out this year and open up the new with softness and without it being about activate new challenges kind of thing. It's just going to be very, very gentle. A lot of journaling, reflecting, and connecting in. I'd love to see you there. And I'm going to be doing the activation for this new moon there as well. And you can also find me, of course, on my Instagram. And yes, there are dupes, and there have been dupes running around the internet. We all know this. So just follow the one handle. Keep an eye out for any weird messages. I'll never message you and ask you if you want a reading, that's just not going to happen. So just know that's the case. And I'd love it if you subscribed, and we're going to have so many nourishing, amazing conversations. I'm going through my own alchemical process this year, and I'm going to be sharing more about that as we keep going. So have a beautiful new moon, Capricorn, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.